pages and the page components. Let's get started. In this lesson, we will learn how to manage pages using the Page Designer. We will also see a detailed discussion about the Page Designer user interface elements. Later, you will learn how to create regions in the page and also add different page components to the page.
A page is a basic building block of an application. On the screen, you can see the different components of a page. Each page in an Oracle Apex application contains one or more regions. Regions function as containers for content. A region can contain static HTML or it can be a report based on a SQL query. A region can contain items, buttons, and a navigation menu. Now, an item is a part of an HTML form. An item can be a text field, text area, password, select list, checkbox, and so on. You can use buttons to direct users to a specific page or URL or to post or process information. For example, cancel, delete, apply changes, and so on. When you build a database application, you can include different navigation controls. The available navigation option depends upon the application theme. Common navigation controls include tabs, lists, including navigation menu, breadcrumbs, navigation bar entries, and branches. On the screen, you can see an example of navigation menu that is displayed as a sidebar. When you run an application from the app builder, the developer toolbar is displayed at the bottom of any editable running page. You use the developer toolbar to quickly edit the current application or currently running page or view the session state. Now let us understand the different page modes. When you create a new page, the wizard prompts you to select a page mode. The page mode determines if the page is a normal application page or a dialog. Apex supports two types of dialog pages, modal dialog and non-modal dialog. Modal and non-modal dialog pages are only supported if the current application theme contains at least one page template of type dialog page. To create a dialog page in your application, when you create a new page, in the page definition, you can select any of the page modes. Now, I'll show an example of how the modal pages look in an application. I have a sample application where employee details are displayed as a report. This page is the normal Apex application page. You have an edit icon for each record. When I click on an edit icon, it opens another window known as the modal dialog page. A modal dialog is an overlay window positioned within the viewport, which remains active and focused until the end user dismisses or closes it. The underlying page is grayed out and the end user is prevented from interacting with the rest of the page until this dialog is closed. Now, let me edit this modal dialog and change it to a non-modal dialog. We'll go back to the Page Designer and change the page mode to non-modal dialog. Save these changes. Go back to the application and refresh it. Okay, so now when I click on the edit icon, it opens a new window and the underlying page is also editable now. So a non-modal dialog is an overlay window positioned within the viewport where the end user can interact with the dialog and the content of the page that launched the dialog simultaneously. A non-modal dialog can be used when the requested information is not essential to continue, and work can continue elsewhere while the window is still open. Note that Oracle Apex includes dialog page templates in the universal theme. When you set the page mode to either modal or non-modal, Oracle Apex automatically uses the default dialog page template. When you create an application in Apex, you can add additional pages to the application by running the Create Page wizard. You can access this wizard in two ways. On your application home page, click on Create Page. Or if you already have the Page Designer open, you can navigate to the Page Designer toolbar and click on the plus icon and select Page. The Create Page wizard includes three types of pages. Component pages provides page level functionality and can be added multiple times within a given application. Example includes cards, calendar, smart filters, faceted search, reports, and so on. Feature pages provide application level functionality and are typically added once per application. Examples include About page, access control, activity reporting, feedback, and login page. Legacy pages. Oracle still supports the legacy pages but does not recommend using them. So let us see an example of how to create a new page. From your Create Page wizard, click on the type of page that you require. I'm going to select a blank page and click on Next. Remember, the page type you select, either component or feature, determines what appears next. A blank page is a page with no built-in functionality. Once created, you can customize this page for your requirements. For example, you might want to create a help page in your application. So you first create a blank page and then navigate to the page designer, and then you can add a help text region on this blank page. Enter a name for the page. Notice that there are three different page modes available. You already learned about page modes in this lesson. Here I accept the default normal page mode. Then you can select whether you want to use a breadcrumb navigation control on your page. In this example, you select breadcrumb and then select a value for the parent entry. Select whether you use navigation. This will allow users to navigate to a new page directly from the navigation menu. In this example, select the navigation preference whether you want to create a new entry or map to an existing entry, and then select a parent navigation menu entry if required. You can also associate an icon with the navigation menu entry. Once you specify all the attributes, click on Create Page. A blank page is created and then you are navigated to the page designer. Now you can click Save or save and run the page.
To summarize, in this lesson, you learned how to manage pages in the page designer. We also saw a detailed discussion of the page designer UI elements. Later, you also learned how to create regions in a page and add the page components from the gallery. I hope you learned something useful.
And then restore to return it to the previous size.
Module on working with pages and regions. In this video, we will see how to create pages and explore the page components. My name is Apurva and I am a Senior Product Manager for Oracle Apex. Let's get started. This lesson introduces you to the page designer. We will further have a detailed discussion about the page designer user interface elements. You also gain an understanding about the application page components. Finally, you will learn how to create a page in an application.
After creating a page, you need to navigate to the page definition to view, modify, and create components on the page. You use the page designer to maintain and enhance pages within an Oracle Apex application. Page Designer is a fully featured integrated development environment that includes a toolbar and multiple panes. So to view the page definition in the page designer, you need to go to your workspace homepage and click on the app builder icon. Then when you select the application in step 1, you then select a page you want to edit in your application in step 2. In step 3, you can see that the page designer appears. You preview a page by running it. Running an application page displays the rendered version as end users would see it. Developers can view and edit application pages in the Page Designer. Page Designer is a fully featured IDE that includes a toolbar and multiple panes. There are 3 main panes within the Page Designer: a left pane, a central pane, and a right pane. You select a component in the left or the central pane and then edit the component's attributes in the property editor located in the right pane. The left pane includes tabs for rendering, dynamic actions, processing, and shared components. Each tab displays a list of corresponding component types and components created on the current page. The central pane includes tabs for layout, messages, page search, and help. The right pane displays the property editor. Use the property editor to configure or update attributes for the selected components. Now, I'm going to switch back to my Apex workspace and demonstrate the capabilities of Page Designer. On the screen, you can see that I have opened the Page Designer for a particular page in a sample application. Let us begin with understanding the Page Designer toolbar. The Page Designer toolbar is displayed at the top of the page and contains both buttons and menu options. Hover your cursor over an active button to display a tooltip. The page selector displays the current page. Click the down arrow to display the page finder and search for pages or enter a page number in the search field and click on Go. Note, a warning icon appears next to the page selector when there are errors in the page. You will learn more about the error messages in the later lessons. The next is the page lock and unlock. This indicates whether a page is locked or unlocked. Unlocked pages are editable and locked pages are not. The padlock icon indicates the status. The next is the undo change. This reverts the previous update you made within the page designer. It applies to actions that result in a change to the page data. Redo change. Reapply for the last update that was undone using the undo changes. Applies to actions that result in a change to the page data. Next is the Create. The Create menu features a graphical plus sign. Clicking the Create menu displays options to create a page, create a new page as a copy, create a breadcrumb region, shared component, a page group, developer comment, or an issue. The Utilities menu is denoted by a graphic of a wrench. The options include to delete a page, open the advisor, caching, history of the page, checksum, export, show, tooltips and layout view, and in layout, you can change the layout to 2-pane layout or reset the layout. The next is the shared components. Clicking on it will take you to the shared components page. Save will save the changes made to the page. Save and run button will save the changes you made and run the page. Now let's switch back to the left pane. The left pane in the page designer includes 4 tabs: rendering, dynamic actions, processing, and page shared components. Each tab displays a list of corresponding component types and components created on the current page. The rendering tab displays the regions, page items, page buttons, page components, and application logic. The Dynamic Actions tab displays the dynamic actions defined on this page. Currently, this page has no dynamic actions, but by creating a dynamic action, you can define complex client-side behavior declaratively without the need for JavaScript. You learn more about dynamic actions later in this course. The Processing tab displays the application logic defined on this page. The Shared Components tab displays the shared components associated with this page. The key features of the left pane include the context menus. You can right-click on a component or control to display a contextual menu. Quick access to the property editor. Select a component or multiple components to display the corresponding attributes in the property editor in the right pane. Drag and drop. You can drag components up and down within the tree region to change the position or sequence of the selected component. The rendering and processing trees are grouped and ordered based on how Oracle Apex processes them. The dynamic actions and the shared component trees are grouped by event or component type and ordered by sequence. The central pane. The central pane in the page designer consists of 5 sections. First is the Layout tab. It displays a visual representation of the page regions, items, and buttons that define a page. Messages displays the errors and warnings you need to address. Clicking a message changes the focus within the property editor, the corresponding attribute associated with the error or warning. Page search allows you to search for the page metadata, including regions, items, buttons, dynamic actions, columns, and so on. Help displays attribute-specific help. Click the attribute name within the property editor to view the information and examples. At the bottom of the Layout tab, you can find the Gallery pane. The Gallery pane displays at the bottom of the Layout tab and contains 3 tabs: Regions, Items, and Buttons. A region is an area of the page that serves as a container for content. Buttons and items are components that you can add to regions that allow the end user to interact with the page. You can add new controls and components, regions, items, and buttons to a page by selecting them in the gallery and dragging them and dropping them in the Layout tab. The Layout tab, as we discussed earlier, is a visual representation of how the components are positioned on the page. The Layout tab features context menus. By selecting a component and right-clicking, you can delete, move, or copy the component to other regions or new regions on the page. You can also move existing regions, items, and buttons relative to other components by simply clicking the component and dragging it to a new location. For example, you can place items next to another by dragging the second item to the end of the first item and dropping it in the dark yellow box. That appears when you hover the cursor in the desired location. When dragging components to a new position, such as dragging an item onto the same line as an existing item, you need to drag the component into the desired position and wait until the grid changes and the new drop position is displayed. You can adjust the size of each pane by selecting and dragging the horizontal and vertical splitters. To expand or collapse each pane, click the small triangle labeled Collapse in the center of each splitter. Alternatively, you can click the Expand button to make the Layout tab larger and then restore to return it to the previous size. The layout menu is displayed on the right side of the pane. You can use this menu to customize the type and amount of information that is displayed. To have a specific region fill the Layout tab, select the region and then select Display from here from the Layout menu. The selected region fills the Layout tab. To restore the view, select Display from page. Note that hidden items are not displayed in Layout but are displayed in the rendering tree. The right pane in the Page Designer contains the Property Editor. The Property Editor displays all attributes for the current component. As you select different components in either the left pane or the Layout tab, the Property Editor automatically updates to display attributes for the selected component. When you select multiple components, the Property Editor only displays the common attributes. Updating a common attribute updates the corresponding attribute for all the selected components. Since the component was updated and I do not need it to be a select list, I'm going to change it back to a text field. The Property Editor organizes the attributes into functional groups like identification, label, settings. To quickly access a group, you can click on Go to Group and select the group. To return to the default display, click on Go to Group again and select Expand All. To search for a group or an attribute, enter a keyword in the Filter Properties field. The groups and the attributes containing the keyword will appear. To return to the default display, delete the keyword in the Filter Properties field. To search for the keywords across all the items, regions, and processes, click the Pin Filter button on the right side of the search field. When activated, the search term that you entered remains persistent as you click around in the Page Designer. Click the Pin filter again to disable it. For attributes requiring large amounts of code, for example a region source, you can enter the code directly into the region or the item component settings using the code editor. Click the code editor icon to enter text in a fully featured code editor. A code editor displays as a modal dialog. You can use the code editor to edit attributes requiring a large amount of code. The code editor provides an enhanced editor to edit PLSQL, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript component properties. The code highlighting is determined by the input required for the specific property. The key features of the code editor include undo, redo, find, query builder, autocomplete, and validate. The settings menu located on the right side offers additional options including tab insert spaces, tab size, indent size, themes, show line numbers, show ruler, show suggestions, and show white spaces. As a developer, you add content to a page by creating a region. As we discussed earlier, a region is an area of a page that serves as a container for content. Each region contains a different type of content such as HTML, a report, a form, a chart, a list, breadcrumb, PLSQL, a tree, URL, or a calendar. You position a region either relative to other regions, that is based on its sequence, number, and column, or by using a region position defined in the page template. The style of the region is also controlled by the region template. Like the page template, the region template defines the structure of the area that the region takes up on the page. It defines if the region title is displayed and where it is displayed relative to the main content of the body. A region can also define absolute positions for buttons. To create a new region, in the page designer, right-click on the content body and select Create Region. In the right pane, you can give a name to your region and select the type of region that you want to create. Make the changes and finally click on the Save button. Another interesting point to note in the gallery region is that there are two ways of adding the components into the page. You can either select a component and drag and drop it into the layout region, or you can select a component in the gallery and right click to use a context sensitive menu. Here on the screen you can see that a new region was created. I added a checkbox item to this newly created region. You'll learn more about the items later in this course.
To summarize, in this lesson, you learned how to create a page in an Apex application. You also learned about the various page types and its components. I hope you learned something useful. Thank you for watching. Welcome to the module on developing reports. In this lesson, we will learn how to create reports in Apex. My name is Apurva and I'm a Senior Product Manager for Oracle Apex. Let's get started. In this video, you will learn the different types of reports in Apex and the different ways of creating these reports.
A report in Oracle Apex is the formatted result of a SQL query. You can generate the SQL query by selecting a table or view in a wizard, or by defining the SQL query manually. On the screen, you can see the different report types: the interactive report, interactive grid, and classic report. Now on this screen, you can see examples of faceted search, cards, and smart filters. The main difference between the different types of reports is the extent and the way in which end users can customize the appearance of data through searching, filtering, sorting, column selection, highlighting, and other data manipulations. You learn more about each of these report types in the upcoming videos. Let us look at some of the capabilities of different reports. Now, when viewing an interactive report, end users can customize how and what data to display. You choose an interactive report if your requirement is end user customizations. On the other hand, an interactive grid presents users with a set of data
in a searchable and customizable report. In the editable interactive grid, users can add, modify, and refresh data directly on the report. Plus, the end user has the ability to rearrange the report interactively using the mouse. You choose an interactive grid if your requirement is to allow end user editing and refreshing directly on the report page, along with the end user customization of the report. If you do not need any of these customizations or built-in search bar and drill down capabilities, then you can choose a classic report. Apex allows you to create reports by running a wizard or by dragging and dropping the region type in the page designer. App Builder includes built-in wizards that enable you to generate these reports. Using these wizards, you can create a report when you create a new database application, create as a new page in an application, or create a report region on an existing page in an application. Let us now quickly review the steps involved in creating a report using the Create Application wizard. First, on your workspace homepage, click on the App Builder icon and click on Create. Select New Application and enter the application details. Then click on Add Page. In the Add Page dialog, select a report of your choice. Enter the page details like name, source, and type. Finally, accept the defaults and click on Create Application. Now let's go ahead and see how to create an interactive report or a classic report using the Create Application wizard. On the screen you can see that I have opened my Apex workspace. To create a new application, go to App Builder and click on Create. Select New Application. Then click on Add Page to add a report page. In the Add Page dialog, you can select a variety of reports such as cards, faceted search, interactive grid, interactive report, and classic report. For the purpose of this demo, I'll choose interactive report. In the Add Report dialog, enter a name for the report page. Select an icon to display in the navigation menu for this page. Select the source for the report, either a table or a view or a SQL query. What you select determines what displays next. For this demo, I'll select table or view, and then you have a choice to select the type of report that you need, either an interactive report or a classic report. For this demo, I'll accept the default selection of interactive report. Now, select the table or view. I select table which already resides in my database, and optionally, you can select the Include Form checkbox to include a linked form page to enable users to maintain the table values. Finally, click on Add Page. Accept the other defaults and click on Create Application. Run the application. Therefore, in this demo, you learned how to create an interactive report using the Create Application wizard. Now you can create the same report using the Create Page wizard. Let's see how that is done. Go back to your application homepage and click on Create Page. The Create Page wizard supports reports such as interactive report, interactive grid, classic report, faceted search. Now select the type of report. I'll select interactive report. Then follow the on-screen instructions to create the report. You can choose to create the report with the form. So enable the include form page and provide a name for the form. Choose the data source. Here I accept the defaults of local database and the table and select the same projects table. You can choose the preferred navigation and click on next. The primary key is selected by default from the table. You can also add a secondary primary key column. Finally, click on Create Page. Now, a new page is added to an existing application and we can run the page to see that an interactive report is created as a new page. Since we enabled the form, you can see an edit icon next to each record. Clicking on that will open a drawer form where you can edit the details of the record. You can also create a new report region on an existing page in an application. To show you this demonstration, I am going to create a new blank page. Projects 3. So first, I am going to show you how we can drag and drop a report region onto the layout. In the Gallery menu, under Regions tab, select Interactive Report. Click and hold the mouse and drag it to the desired location in the Layout tab. When the mouse is over the appropriate location, the Layout tab displays a dark and yellow tile. Now release the mouse to drop the region. The page designer indicates what actions are required next. The Messages tab displays a red or a yellow badge indicating the number of messages you need to address. Then you can click on each message and edit the attributes in the property editor. We need to select a source table name for the interactive report region. So from the list of tables, I select projects and then you can provide a title for the region. Click on Save. Save and run the page. So here you can see that we created an interactive report on an existing page. Let's go back to the page designer. Now another way of adding the report region is to right click on the body in the rendering tree and create a new region. Select the new region and in the property editor you can change the type to interactive report. Provide a title and address the errors. We need to provide the table name. Select the appropriate table for the report and click on Save. You can also add the interactive report from the Gallery menu using the context sensitive menu. In the Gallery tab, under Region, select the region that you want, for example, interactive report. Right click on that and it shows a context sensitive menu. Then you can go to Add to and select the region in the layout where you would want to add the report. Let's run it and you can see the same report that we added. using the rendering tree. So to summarize, you can also drag and drop the report from the gallery section. You can right click and use the context menu in the rendering tree. You can also use the gallery context menu to insert the report region.
To summarize, in this lesson you learned the different types of reports in Apex and the different ways of creating these reports. I hope you learned something useful. Thank you for watching.
Welcome to Oracle Apex Developer Professional Course. My name is Taufik. I am Senior Product Manager for Oracle Apex. An Apex application has a client side and a server side. On the server side lies the database. What if you want to execute a PLSQL block when the page is rendered? What if you want to execute a business validation when the page is submitted? In this module about enhancing your applications using computations, processes, or validations, you will learn exactly that. You will learn how to use computations to compute values of page items and application items. You will also learn how to execute PLSQL blocks at various page processing points. You will also learn how to execute business validations on top of the data submitted by the user. In this first lesson, you will get a brief introduction to what Apex does when the page is requested, that is, page rendering. You will also learn what Apex does when the page is submitted, that is, page processing. Let's get started. The Apex engine primarily relies on two processes to do its job. One is the show page process, also known as page rendering, and the other is the accept page process, also known as page processing. So what is show page process? The Apex engine dynamically renders and processes pages based on data stored in the Oracle database tables. To view a rendered version of your application, you request it from the Apex engine with an URL. When you request a page using an URL, the engine is running show page process. During show page process, the Apex engine assembles all the page attributes, including regions, items, and buttons that you have configured in the page designer into a viewable HTML page. Coming to accept page process. What is accept page process? When you submit a page, the Apex engine is running accept page process or performing page processing, during which it saves the submitted values into the session state and then performs any computations, validations, or processes or branching that you have defined in the page designer. This slide shows an example of page rendering. In this example, you see the customer's report. When you click on a customer name in the report, the customer details form dialog page is invoked. During this invocation, the Apex engine is essentially calling page rendering process. As I've explained earlier, it reads the Apex metadata which the developer has configured using page designer for this dialog page, and it assembles all the page attributes including regions, items, and buttons, and displays that in the form of a viewable HTML page which you see as a dialog page. And when you click on the cancel button in the customer details form page, the dialog closes and you are again shown the customer report page. In this example, nothing is submitted in the customer details form dialog page, and so there is no page processing involved. Now coming to the example of page processing. In this slide, the example describes page processing. So in the customer details form dialog page, you see two extra buttons, apply changes and delete changes. So in this page, you can update the details of the customer, and once you are done with updating the details, when you click on the apply changes page, and as part of this, the form page is submitted, and that is where the Apex engine performs page processing or the accept page process, during which all the page items that you see in the page are submitted to the session state. The client values of these page items, whatever you see, are the client values. They are not yet submitted to the session state unless you submit the page. So when you submit the page, that is when these page items are submitted to the session state. And then after all these items are submitted to the session state is when the Apex engine performs different computations, validations, processes, and branching you have defined in the customer details form dialog page. This is an example of page processing. To summarize, In this lesson, you have learned about the show page process, also known as page rendering. You have also learned about the accept page process, also known as page processing. In the coming lessons, you will learn about various process types and execution points available in Apex, where you can run your custom PLSQL code. Hope you have learned something new. Thank you for watching. Welcome to this module on enhancing your applications using computations, process, and validations. In this lesson, you will learn about computations. You will learn how to use page computations and application computations to compute values for page items and application items. Let's get started. A computation in Apex is a logic that can be used to assign values to single item. There are two types of computations. One is application level computations, which are defined at the application level. The second one is the page level computations, which are defined at the page level and gets executed only for that specific page when the page is loaded or submitted. Application level computations are generally used to populate values into application items, and the page level computations are generally used to populate values into page items. Page computation can be used to assign value to a specified item when the page is submitted or displayed, and the application level computations to assign values to different items. Some of the examples of computations are, let's say you want to retrieve and display a value such as total salary from the database. When the report is displayed, you can use page rendering computation. Another example is, let's say you have a form page which contains fields for entering phone numbers. The phone number is stored in a single database column. However, the data entry form breaks the phone number into three components: area code, prefix, and line number. So in this example, you can use a computation to combine these three values into a single string and assign that into a page item, which can then be used to update a database column. So these are some of the classical use cases of using computations. Let us see how to create a computation. I'm using the same example. I have an employee's report. When I try to edit an employee, it opens the edit form. Here I get all the details of the employee. So in this example, what I'm going to do is I'll create one more item which displays the sum of salary value and the commission value. It just adds these two values and displays in the item. So let me do that. Let me go to in the page designer in page number 3, which is the form which you just saw. So here I'll be adding one more page item. I'm gonna call it total salary. Once that page item is added, I can then go to pre-rendering under after header, right click and choose create computation. On the right hand side in the property editor, you can select the item name and to which you want to assign the computed value. In our case, it will be the total salary. Under type, you can choose different ways you can compute the value. You can give a static value. You can get value from another item. You can use SQL query, which returns a single value, or SQL query, which returns multiple values separated by colon. An expression, you can use function body, and you can also get the value from the preference. So I'm using function body from this example, and just write return P3 sal, and that will be added with P3 commission, which adds the salary and commission page items, and we can't save. Now with this saved, you can go back and reopen this employee which has both salary and commission, and now you can see the total salary computed here, which is a sum of salary and commission. This is how you can create a computation. Computation can be executed at various execution points. You can see all these points in the execution property group. The computation can also be created after submit, for example, which will be executed when the page is submitted. And now let us also see the second type of computations that are available in Apex, which is the application computation. We can go to application computation from shared components. Under shared components, under application logic, you can find application computations. Click on that. Here you can create application computations by clicking on the create button. Again, you need to select the computation item. It can be an application item or it can also be a page item. I have an application item, I'll select that, but you can also choose a page item if you want. And here we have some extra computation points like new instance whenever a new session is created, or if you want to compute something after authentication, and the general computation points which you saw in the page computation as well. So for now, you can choose whichever you want. The computation type is the same which you saw in the page computations. You can compute the value in whichever way you want. Various computation types are available here. For example, if I choose static assignment, I can just give a value here, something like this. Now on the click of create computation button, the application computation is created. This is how you can create page computations and application computations in Apex. To summarize, in this lesson, you have learned how to create and use page computations and application computations to assign values to your page items and application items. You have also learned about various execution points available in Apex where you can execute your computations. Hope you have learned something new. Thank you for watching. Welcome to this module on enhancing your applications using computations, process, and validations. In this lesson, you will learn about various application processes and page processes available in Apex. You will also learn about various execution points at which you can execute these processes. Let's get started. What is a page process? What does it do? Page process performs an action at a specified point during the rendering or submission of the page. For example, you can create a page process to execute logic or to make a call to the database. A page process is a unit of logic that runs when a specific event occurs, such as page rendering or submitting a page. You can choose different process points to control when the page process executes. On the other hand, application processes are blocks of PLSQL logic that are set to run at specific points using processes from multiple pages of an application. The slide also shows different process types available in Apex. For example, clear session state. You can use that process type to clear the session state stored within Apex. You can use close the current model dialog after the processing is done. You can use automatic row processing DML to insert, update, or delete records into a single database table or an updatable view. You can use invoke API to call PLSQL APIs defined in the database. Let us have a quick demo of page processes. Let us see how to create a page process. For this demonstration, I'm going to use this employees report. This employees report has two buttons. One is the create button, using which you can create an employee, and an edit hyperlink, using which you can edit employee details. Right now it opens an empty page with no items and regions. Same is the case with edit employee as well. So let me go to this page and create some regions. First region that I'll be creating is the type form, and I'll be using the EMP table. Now, as you can see, all the page items are created and employee number is marked as the primary key as it should be, and I click on save. With that created, now if I go back and click on create, as we have discussed earlier, it will invoke the page rendering for that particular page number 3 in this case, and it will render all these items. So this is the page rendering process which is called. Now if I click on the edit icon, as you can see, all the items are filled. Why are they filled? If you go back and dig in a little bit, you can see when you create a form region, the Apex engine has automatically created for you a form initialization process. So from the report page, we are passing the primary key of the corresponding row, the employee number, to the create or edit employee model dialog. And since we have this initialize form process defined in the before header pre-rendering, it knows that P3 employee number is the primary key and it uses that value to fetch other attributes of this employee like employee name, job, manager, hired, etc. Because of this pre-rendering process. Now let us see how to create your own pre-rendering process. This is created by Apex by default when you create a form region. To create a process, you can right click on any of these process points, before header, after header, or before regions. So there are 3 execution points available in pre-rendering. You can select, and when you right click on it, you get multiple options, whether you want to create computation or create process. You can use create process for this demo. Now a new process is created. Here you can select what is the type of process, whether you want to execute a code. So this is like the blanket type. With execute code, you can perform any kind of PLSQL logic in this PLSQL code block. The most common use case would be to perform any initializations of page items. For example, I want to initialize the salary page item as null. I can have it like this in the PLSQL block and click on save. And now when I open this employee's detail, you can see the salary is not filled. Even though this employee's salary is filled here, it is not filled in the model dialog because we have mentioned this pre-rendering process. This is how you can leverage processes during page rendering and initialize page items, for example. So you can always change the process point from the execution property group here on the right side. You can also define whether the process should be executed once per page visit, which is the default, or once per session. This is how you create a process which can be executed during pre-rendering. Now coming to the process which gets executed on submit. Now if I go to processing tab, you can see there are no processes because this is an empty page. Now let me create a button which will submit the form. First I will create a region and a button in that region. I'll name it apply changes. Then I can give a template to the region as buttons container. I can also make the button hot. Now that the button is defined, now when I click on this button, the page will be submitted because the action is submit page. Now when the page is submitted, what we want is to save whatever the user has entered in these records into the database. So for that, let me go to the processing tab, and in here we have again multiple process execution points. Let me create a process in the processing point, and here I can select different process types. So I can always use the execute code to perform custom logic, but I will not be using this execute code, but I'll be using form automatic row processing DML, which automatically handles the DML processing of the region we define here. Form region, I'll be selecting employees form and I'll be giving it a name, meaningful name. And one more thing here is on the apply changes button, I have to also mention the database action, whether I want to perform an insert action or update action or delete action. Now I'll be performing an update action on this apply changes button. Now when I go back to the page and reopen the page, I get an apply changes button. When I make a change, for example ename to Clark 2 and click on apply changes, the row is updated, and when I go back to the region and refresh the grid, you can see these changes being applied. So this is how you can create process which can be executed during the page submit or accept page process. To summarize, in this lesson, you have learned how to create and use a page process to initialize form page items during page rendering. You have also learned how to create and use a page process to update data in database tables during page processing. Hope you have learned something new. Thank you for watching. Welcome to this module on enhancing your applications using computations, process, and validations. In this lesson about creating and using validations, you will learn what are validations in Apex. You will also learn how to create and use SQL type validations and PLSQL type validations to validate the data submitted by the user. Let's get started. Let us see a small demonstration on how to create a validation. In this example, I have the employees report, and when I click on the edit icon, the employee edit form appears. Here what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a validation to ensure that the commission is not greater than 50% of the salary. Let us go to the page designer. Let me open quick edit, and so this is the item that holds the commission value. Right click on the commission item and select create validation. On the right hand side, you get various options to select what type of validation you want to do. For this demo, I'll be using an expression validation, and the language I'm going to choose SQL. And here the condition is, so I have defined a validation, and I can give an intuitive error message like this and click on save. Now this validation is created. When I go back to the page and try to give a commission which is way more than 50% of salary, and I click on apply changes, and it throws the error. In the page designer, under associated item, you see the page item field, and the display location is in line with field and in notification. So this is what drives whether or not an inline message should be shown on the page item as well as the notification. This is how you define a validation. To summarize, in this lesson, we have learned about validations in Apex and how you can use SQL type validation and PLSQL type validations to validate the data. Welcome to this module on enhancing your applications using computations, process, and validations. In the previous lesson, you have learned about the SQL type validation and the PLSQL type validation. In this lesson, you will learn about the regular expression type validation. You will also learn how to perform row-by-row validations for the data submitted using interactive grid. Furthermore, you will also learn how to use branches to navigate from one page to another. Let's get started. Apart from the SQL validation type and PLSQL validation type, you can also define a regular expression validation type. As you see on the screen, a validation is created on the phone number, and on the right hand side, the type is item matches regular expression. So when the value of the phone number page item matches the regular expression that is defined in the regular expression attribute, the validation passes, and if it does not match, it will throw an error, and the error message is defined in the error message attribute. This is how you can define a regular expression validation type. Once this validation fails, this is how the error message is displayed. So here we have defined a validation on the phone number as well as alternate number, and once the page is submitted, both these validations are executed. Because the regular expression is not matched, it threw an error. Let us see how to create a validation type of regular expression. In the create or edit employee form, there is a phone number field, and I'm going to create a validation on this item to check whether or not the entered value is a valid phone number. For that, I can go to the respective item in the page designer, click on create validation. On the right hand side under type, this time I'll be selecting the type item matches regular expression. In the item, I can select the phone number and the regular expression. I have it copied in my clipboard and I'll paste it here. With that, I have defined the validation section. I can also define an error message, just say not a valid number. The error message can be not a valid phone number, something intuitive. With that defined, you can save, go back to the page, and I give a long number which is not a phone number obviously. And when I click on save, it throws the validation which I just created. So this is how you can create a validation of type regular expression and check whether or not the item value matches the regular expression which you have defined. Up until now, you have seen how to create validations on form items and form pages. Additionally, you can also create a validation on interactive grid. Using interactive grid, user can add new rows and update existing rows. And on click of save, all these new records and the updated records are submitted to the server. On these submitted records, you can create a row validation to check certain conditions. For example, in the screenshot, the validation checks for all the records that are submitted, the commission column must be less than 1.5 times the salary. If the validation condition fails, an error message is shown and the particular record is highlighted with an error. Let us see a demo on how to create a row validation on interactive grid. In this example, I have an interactive grid created on top of EMP table, and this grid is editable. User can edit columns in this grid, and user can also add new rows using add row button. So now I'm going to create a validation on top of commission column. When I go to the interactive grid in the page designer, I can expand columns and locate the commission column and create a validation on top of them. On the right hand side, you can change the validation to, let's say, expression and use PLSQL or SQL expression. Here you can define the expression you want to check. So here I am checking if the commission column is less than 1.5 times the salary column. Here you should also note that the editable region is filled with the interactive grid region, and that is how Apex Engine determines that this is an interactive grid based validation and performs row by row processing. I can also modify the error message. In the error message, you can use the substitution string to get the column header value of the commission, and here instead of must have a value, I'll give an intuitive message. With that saved, I can go back to my interactive grid. Now I can edit commission column and give a large value for multiple columns. And when I click on save, both the rows are submitted to the server and they violated the validation that I have created, and hence you see two messages, one for each row. The errored cells are highlighted with a red border. On hovering on these cells, you get the error message, and you can also easily navigate to the errored cells by clicking on the corresponding message in the notification. This is how you can create row validations on interactive grid and validate the interactive grid data that is submitted to the server. The next topic in this lesson is branching. What is a branch? A branch is an instruction to navigate to a specific page or URL when the page is submitted or when the page is rendered. You can also open modal dialogs and non-modal dialog pages using branches. Let us see an example of how to create a branch. Again, I'm having an interactive report on top of EMP table, and I have a create button which currently just submits the page. And I click on it and does not open the create or edit employees form. So here what I want is when I click on the create button, it should open the create or edit employee form, which is page number 3. This is page number 2. So for that, let me quickly edit that button. As you can see, this button is submitting the page. What I do now is go to processing, and here I can create, after processing, I can create a branch, and in the target I can specify the type as page in this application, and target page number will be the create or edit form. Additionally, I can also set item values in page number 3 in the target page. For example, if I want to set the employee number to null, because I'm clicking on the create button, the employee number should be null initially, right? So for that, I can just create an employee number like this and leave it null. This will initialize the value to null. Once this is configured, you can click on OK, and you can also additionally provide a server-side condition that this gets executed only on the click of create button. With that defined, you can click on save, and this creates a branch. Now when I go back to the employees page and click on create, the page gets submitted, and because of the branching that I have created in the after processing execution point, the branch gets executed and the create or edit employees form dialog page is open, which is page number 3. So this is how you can create branches in Apex. Branches also have execution points, just like processes. You can create a branch before header, after submit, during validation, processing, or after processing. To summarize, in this lesson, you have learned how to create a regular expression validation type. You have also learned how to validate the data submitted using the interactive grid. Furthermore, you have learned what are branches in Apex and how to use branches to navigate from one page to another. Hope